For an industry that needs to move fast and work nimbly, the post-production workflow can spend a surprising amount of time waiting on manual file transfers, hard drives for media to ship out to editors, and redundant operational tasks. With a cloud-based workflow, automated processes reduce much of the overhead in the pipeline, allowing work to get done faster and collaborators and talent from all over the world to have easier input into the project. Join us as we go all in on how adopters are breaking barriers and reshaping the future of the post-production industry with Studio in the Cloud. To give us a better sense of how this end-to-end cloud-based pipeline is achievable, I spoke with Race to the Cloud director and editor Katrina King on how this experience is changing the editing process.
Can you tell me about the post-production process that you used for Race to the Cloud?
Well, Race to the Cloud was posted entirely in the cloud on AWS, which is starting to become the norm. How we did it was we started with the Unreal projects that were used in pre-visualization and in production to create all of the cinematic pass-by shots you see of the cars passing by and things like that. Everything was edited in Premiere, running on an EC2 instance. And then we did all of the color correction using FilmLight's BaseLight system connected to our Color in the Cloud pipeline that won the HP Engineering Excellence Award in 2022. And then finally, we did our QC in Colorfront. A couple years ago, there were almost no way to connect a reference monitor to a remote instance for cloud-based post-production. On Race to the Cloud, I think we had 3 or maybe even 4 different ways of doing it. We had the Color in the Cloud pipeline connected to BaseLight. We had the Colorfront streaming server connected to Colorfront. We had a Streambox integration with Adobe Premiere, and then we used the Blackmagic Decklink system for our Fairlight audio post.
After editing comes color correction. To talk about how a cloud-based workflow is streamlining the color and post-production process as a whole, I sat down with Managing Director of FilmLight, Peter Postma.
Can you tell me a little bit about the AWS services that are part of your architecture?
Yeah, to deliver a color correction that the artist wants, which is very interactive, we really tied together a lot of the Amazon services. So the core BaseLight software is running on an Amazon EC2 instance with GPUs, because all our image rendering is done on the GPUs, so that can be very fast. And it also needs high-speed storage. So we're using either FSX Lustre storage or Weka storage to deliver those high data rates of uncompressed high-resolution footage. And then the artist also needs an image they can depend as their reference image when they're color grading, when they're making their color decisions. They need to make sure that there's no compression artifacts or things like that that are biasing what they're seeing. So we partnered with Amazon on their CDI technology to stream uncompressed images out of the EC2 instance and then into the Elemental Media Connect service to actually do the JPEG XS compression and stream that to the client at the end.
So as the Race to the Cloud production came together, what were some of the key benefits that you saw as FilmLight as being part of that?
Yeah, the biggest benefit was just having everyone on that shared storage so that the VFX, editorial, and us in color were all pulling from the same place. So when we needed to have a VFX shot updated, we didn't then have to wait for someone to deliver it on a hard drive or send a download link. It was just right there where we needed to be, and we could conform off of it right away. So just that speed of interaction with all the other departments was really the biggest benefit.
The final step of the post-production process is quality control monitoring and the creation of a master project file. Colorfront is on the forefront of using the cloud for brand new processes like virtual QCing and mastering. Director of Solution Engineering, Brandon Heaslip, shared more with me about Colorfront's exciting advancements.
So tell me a little bit about what the architecture looks like for Colorfront when they're using cloud.
So our architecture is actually pretty simple. All the security on the sense of how the systems are accessed, et cetera, is done by the studio or the customer. For us, we require a G5 12x large instance, obviously inside a secure VPC. There's some networking side of things in order to, say, remote desktop into the system, whether you're using nice DCV or Teradici or your choice. That's all up to you and your security team and the end users. And then for the reference quality stream that comes out of QC Player, that's just allowing a couple ports to be opened for both the video to actually leave. That's the biggest thing, is to get it out of the cloud. And obviously we need read and list access to an S3 bucket. So when it comes down to it, it's an instance and an S3 bucket, and you can start streaming.
And so how is that different for somebody that's doing QC? What do they notice? Is there anything that is different when they're using the cloud, or is their experience really kind of hidden from them?
Ideally, it's hidden from them. Ideally, a QC operator would log into their machine, they'd log in with their Active Directory user, they'd launch the software, get into their work order system on-prem. It should work exactly the same in the cloud. And so there's a lot of automated tools that you can do in the sense of routing the video when you launch the session for the operator to make it feel like they're operating the machine, whether it's in the machine room or in the cloud. And I think that's one of the biggest things that everyone is kind of striving towards, because there still is a little bit of a not quite there yet, but we're not too far away.
What are end customers putting on as kind of constraints or pressures that are making the QC process in the cloud the most efficient way to go?
I think it's turnaround time. I think when you have facilities all over the world with some of our major partners, you might be doing a job in London, and they finish the job really, really late at night. The London QC team has been taken offline, but all the media's in the London region or in Frankfurt, wherever it needs to be. But their office in Burbank is just coming online, and that needs to be turned around by the end of day, say in 6 hours. Well, do you keep the London operator on overtime? They're already tired, they've already spent a long day QCing things, or do you get one of the team in Burbank to say, pick up the job and run with it? But they don't have to move the media. They just light up the room, assign it, spin up the machine, and they can immediately start QCing with that same reference quality, as they were seeing in London, to of course speed up the workflow. Then it's done, and then they say, okay, it's delivered, or it needs to be fixed, and then the process continues as quickly as possible.
What FilmLight and Colorfront have achieved is just the beginning of how the cloud can make post-production more efficient. Widespread adoption of these processes minimize repetitive tasks and allow filmmakers to do what they do best: focus on crafting compelling art and narratives with a distinctive point of view.